Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome back to my channel. Time to go through a list of all of the books that I've read for the opening round of the Booktube prize. Now if you remember, I had a video just going through them without really saying them, so now we're at the end of the voting period. All of the judges have voted and the first round results are in. So now I'm allowed to talk about how I felt about these books, all 6 of them. I'm going to go chronologically through those 6 books. And the first one I finished was Tracy Chevalier's A Single Thread. And then you'll see me in different shirts and different locations doing a review for all the other 5 books. I didn't have high hopes for this when I started. Now, I've never read anything by Tracy Chevalier. I knew about The Girl with the Pearl Earring, having never read it, just thinking that it just wasn't for me. And when I first started reading this, I thought this one isn't for me either. A Single Thread's not for me. It basically tells the story of the interwar period between World War I and World War II of a woman called a woman who's lost her father, her brother, and her fiance, and is now considered a spinster. And all that means in that interwar period. And she works at an insurance company as a typist, and she has very few friends. She's very, very quiet and soft-spoken, and she's domineered by her mother, who's a bit of a nasty piece of work, and she falls into a group of broiderers who are a church embroidery society. And when I first read that, I thought, oh, I'm going to hate this. But it was charming. And that's probably the best word to describe the entire book. Similar to a Mrs. Dalloway, which you heard me rave about at the end of last year. This is charming. The characters are charming. And the story is charming. It's not exciting, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's and it really does step you through how this woman finds her place in this world that is doing everything it can to make sure that she remains a spinster. So she falls in with this broiderer society, and then she meets a man that she really shouldn't fall in love with, who's older and married, and she knows she shouldn't fall in love with him, but she does. And she makes some friends because of the broiderer society. There's a little bit of intrigue with this man that seems to be stalking her quite strangely, but in the end it's a good resolution. And I think charming is the best word, but I did thoroughly get wrapped up in the story when I really didn't expect to. And I think that's one of the most wonderful things about books in general, and about this book, because I really liked it. I'm giving it 4 stars, is that a book's ability to surprise you, and a book's ability to wrap itself up in you, or to wrap itself around you and just not let go. And A Single Thread really did that. It just charmed the pants off me. I don't know how. It's really not the book. So much so that I've now gone out and bought The Girl with the Pearl Earring, and I'll read that later in the year when I've got a bit more time. But the writing's nice and crisp and clear, and the characters are these mostly dreary English characters, and no one's terribly exciting, but together it makes a really charming book. So I'm glad I read it. 4 stars for me. Okay, Booktube prize. This is book number 2, 3, I don't know. I think previously I reviewed Tracy Chevalier's A Single Thread, and right now I'm going to review Gods of Jade and Shadow. I don't know why I can't ever remember this. Gods of Jade and Shadow by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and I surprisingly like this book. As I said in the previous little bit, I'm not giving my ratings, although I might change my mind as I read more of these books. But right now, I'm not giving my ratings. And I said this about Tracy Chevalier. It surprised me by how much I liked it, because I didn't think I would. This is the same. It's a very different story. It's Mexican mythology and all sorts of crazy evil stuff going on, but it's not something I expected to like, because other types of mythology, I think of Circe by, what's her name, Miller. I think of Circe. I didn't like that because of the mythological references and the mythology stories. This was thoroughly engaging though. It is about a girl who I forget her name. It's about a girl called Cassiopeia, who is kind of a Cinderella type. Like she lives in a household with her uncle and a cousin and her mother, and they don't treat her very well. She feels very undervalued. She just does all the housework and just never gets anywhere. She feels like her life is going nowhere. And especially her cousin, that she's always butting heads with and getting in fights with, and they're doing horrible things to each other. And she falls into a quest she opens a box. There's a box that she shouldn't open. She opens a box and unleashes a demon called Hunkame, who is a demon that was disembodied and stuffed in a box decades ago, and now Cassiopeia has released him. And she has part of his bone fragment caught in her finger, which links them inexplicably together. So he is gathering life force from her, and she is slowly getting tired and withered and losing her life force. But they embark on a quest together because Hunkame needs to recapture the throne that was taken from him by his evil, not evil, they're both demons, by his twin brother, who now is the lord of Xibalba, the underworld, basically. And they go on this quest. So in the beginning, she's kind of like this Cinderella character, and when they're on the quest, she's kind of like this Judy Garland, follow the yellow brick road, Wizard of Oz type of character. It's a crossover, but the characters are thoroughly engaging. The setting is wonderful in 1920s Mexico, which is not a setting that you would know anything about off the top of your head. So it was really interesting to learn about 1920s Mexico as you went, and about the lifestyle and about the levels of poverty. So people are living in absolute poverty, but just like the United States, you have people living in riches and living in very extravagant lifestyles. And the quest leads them through 3 or 4 cities where Hunkame has to recover part of himself that was taken either by his brother or by other demons as souvenirs, and he can't regain his full power until he recovers all of these items that have been stolen from him, like his eye and his hand and other things. But it really was fantastic. There was not a part of the book where I thought it waned or where I just didn't get it. It really sustained me the whole way through, which is surprising. And similarly for Tracy Chevalier, that I really didn't think it was for me. They've both just thrilled the pants off me. Not literally, but thrilled the pants off me. So I'd be very interested to see what the next 3. So now I've read 3, Women Talking, which I'll redo another little video about later. I've done Tracy Chevalier, A Single Thread, and Gods of Jade and Shadow. And right now I'm reading Ghost War, which I'll do a review of in the next couple of days. It's only a little fellow. And I've got 2 more to go. So some really surprising reads so far. I can't wait to keep going and do more of them. But I'll be back soon with the next couple, with the next review. Thanks, bye. Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome back to my channel. Time for another book review today. I'm in a different part of the garden, a part that you've never seen before. I have these beautiful, what are they called? I have these beautiful pink flowered trees behind me. I think they're called crepe myrtle. I think they're a native. They come out in a couple of different colours. These pink, they're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And the garden is going mad with bird songs this afternoon, so you may get lucky and hear some wonderful bird sounds. I am in a nice shady part of the garden, secluded, so the birds can't see me, hopefully, and we might hear some of their singing in the background. But we need to do a book review. So first, for the Booktube prize, Sarah Moss's Ghost Wall received quite a bit of critical praise all around the place. It's not coming from me though. I was thoroughly disappointed in this book. It held a lot of promise. The blurb on the back, the first few dozen pages or so, it is only a thin volume, first few dozen pages or so held a lot of promise. There's some really high quality writing and prose here. I just don't know what the author was trying to achieve. Were you trying to develop character, or were you trying to develop a ripping story? Because I think she didn't achieve either of those things, and I'm not sure what Sarah Moss was exactly trying to achieve with this book. For the plot, it tells the story of a 17-year-old girl called Sylvie, where her and her parents are camping, I would suppose you call it, in the Northumberland in England, with a group of archaeologists, I suppose, or sociologists, who are doing an experiment about how ancient Britons lived, how they gathered their food, how they lived, and the communal lives of ancient Britons. And then part of this little community that they've got going for just a couple of weeks is to live like these ancient peoples lived. So they cook ancient type meals, they go hunting and gathering. So it's all very twee. But the characters, although in the beginning, as I said, they sound interesting. Sylvie is rebelling against her very forthright father, very domineering father, and her father is this, as expected, violent and unreasonable man. So you can see why everyone in the book feels the way they do about the people around them. That's a no-brainer. But as the story progresses, they find out more and more about. It's almost like with William Golding's Lord of the Flies for adults, how adults would behave put into a situation where they have no technology and no cries for help, and they're condemned to spend time with each other, even just for a short period, in Northumberland of all places. And then what they would do and the decisions they would make, and how those decisions would affect other people. So it is kind of like Lord of the Flies for adults. I just didn't enjoy the story. For such a short book, pick what you want to achieve and go with that. I thought it tried to tell a great story, and the writing was really good. It tried to deeply develop this family of characters, and they were left really shallow. I guess they were trying to develop a message about modern living, and that was left to the side as well. And it just all fell short for me. It was such a disappointing read. Anyway, you get that sometimes. And I mean, this is for a Booktube prize read, so of the 6 that I'm reading so far, this is probably the most disappointing, but still a couple to read. And the very next one I'm going to do is the exact opposite of this. Talk to you soon. Okay, another book review, Booktube prize book review, and still in my little patch of gorgeousness in the back of my garden here with birdsong and the pink flowers and just greenery everywhere. Perfect spot. And this is a great spot to be talking about this book, The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. Never read anything by Anne Patchett before. Highly acclaimed author of lots of different novels that I also haven't read. And this is my Booktube prize read. And I think this is number 5 of the list out of the 6. So really the only one after this that I need to read is Kylie Reid's Such a Fun Age. But this one really blew me away, unexpectedly, kind of like A Single Thread, which by Tracy Chevalier, which I didn't think I'd like at all, and then read it, and then almost fell in love with how charming it was. For a different reason, this was very, very similar. It's a family history drama, and not the kind of thing I would normally read, but I absolutely fell in love with this book. I listened to it on audiobook, and it's narrated by Tom Hanks. But I've since bought the book for my wife because I just couldn't stop talking about this book. And so in this review, I've kind of got to remove how good the narration by Tom Hanks is in order to get to the core of what is great about this book. And I think previously I'd spoken about something called Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss, which I thoroughly did not enjoy. And for the reasons that I didn't enjoy it, because the plot wasn't developed enough, the characters weren't developed enough, and there was no point. This ticks all of those boxes. The prose is just beautiful and rolling and rollicking, and it really is the kind of prose you just immerse yourself in and just sink down into and let it wash over you. And the descriptions of the house, so the Dutch house, I'll get to what the plot is in a minute, and the people especially are what make this book. The characterization, you just know these people so well, even halfway through the book. You know what their motivations are, you know what their relationships are, you know how they treat people, you know the type of person they are. You just know them intrinsically because it's so believable and so rich and pure that it was just a marvel. So, as a basis for the plot, it is a family history drama where you have a brother and sister, and Danny and Maeve, who were lucky enough to grow up rich in a big house called the Dutch house that their father bought as a surprise for their mother. Their father is a real estate developer and construction company owner, and so he buys and sells real estate all the time. He redoes and then flips apartment blocks and houses, and he's got a lot of money, and he's worked hard for his money. His wife, on the other hand, is all about altruism and giving back and helping people, and she feels that living in this house is against every fibre of her being. And then very early on you figure out that she leaves the family. She abandons her own family because of this issue. You believe that this house has driven her to do this, and that her marriage was on the rocks anyway, but you feel that it was the decision that her husband to buy her this house was the last straw for her. So really the story is following these children from very, very young children when they first move into the Dutch house to when they're reaching middle age, and their family has some have died, some have moved on. They've all sorts of things are happening, just like any family drama. The beauty of it comes with the characterization and knowing exactly how they fit all together. There's villains. I mean, if you had to say that there was a villain, there's the evil stepmother, I suppose you would call her. So when mum leaves, another woman comes into the house and marries the father, and they spend an eternity hating this woman for probably good reason if you had to think about it carefully. But the story is just so wonderful and charming, and it's supported so well by just the clarity of the prose and the fullness and richness of the characterization and the descriptions of the house. Even for those that don't like the house, I mean, people come into the house and they hate it, but even the descriptions of what the house means to people and different people is so good. It's just so good. And how this house is just wrapped up in every fibre of their being as they grow from a small child to a middle-aged person. I just found it so captivating and one of the most complete books and completely enjoyable books I've read in recent memory. And on top of that, it's not the type of book I would normally read. It's not high literary fiction. It's just a good, solid story told splendidly well. And man, that makes me happy reading a book like this. And I'm so glad that it was one of the 6 for the Booktube prize. So you're going to listen to the 6 reviews of the 6 books, and one of them is high literary fiction, I guess, and the rest are a mix of everything. But this is so far the absolute standout. 5 stars. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So that's it for this one. More to come. Booktube prize review number, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, one of those. They're all blended into each other. This is Women Talking by Miriam Tobes. I think that's pronunciation. I've heard quite a few different pronunciations out there. And I read this, I had as a warning, I read this last year and did a review of this, not on Booktube, but just on Goodreads last year. And I've since deleted my star rating and deleted the review so that no one knew what it was before I did this again. So I didn't reread this for Booktube prize. I just kind of spent some time rethinking about what I read and drawing some comparisons with the other books in the Booktube prize list, and then making some decisions about where it sat on the list. But here's a little mini review of Women Talking. So it is very different to all of the other 5 books. It's very different to the other 5, to the other books on this pool list. It's a slim volume, very, very dark, very harrowing subject matter, and it's subject matter that the author doesn't shy away from. They confront it right up front, and which is one of the problems I had with something like Ghost Wall, which was again had the potential to be very confronting, but then they pulled back and they didn't give us enough to actually get us into that confronting subject. The author in Women Talking does not in any way do that. She's very upfront in telling us what the problem is, what the issue is, what decisions these women have to make, and the resolution. And as a small plot summary, it tells the story of a Mennonite colony. And before this book, I knew nothing about what a Mennonite colony was, or what type of religion it was. And I'm guessing it's something akin to the Amish. So a Mennonite colony where over many, many nights, consecutive nights, the men in the colony were drugging the women, and then while they were unconscious, they were raping them and doing horrible things to them. And then they would wake up not remembering anything. And then when the women discover what has happened to them, and first of all, the women believe that ghosts or spirits or something supernatural has happened to them. And in fact, the men allow them to believe that and are part of that lie in order to keep their own secrecy about what they've done to their own women. And then over time, the women discover what has happened to them, and they have one decision to make: whether they stay or whether they leave, and what each of those decisions mean. So they're planning on, as a collection of women in this colony, they're planning on either staying and dealing with the problem within the colony, or leave the colony, leave the Mennonite society altogether, and take out on their own in the secular world. So both very, very big decisions, and the entire book is them sitting in an attic space or a prayer space or a relaxation space, having this discussion about what we should do, and confirming to themselves about what these men have done to them, and what that means for them as women, what that means for them as a collection of women, as a group of women, and what it means for Mennonite society in general. And then as they go through the book, there's flashbacks of what has happened to them and how they uncovered this secret that the men have kept from them. And as I said, Miriam Toews does not shy away from the descriptions of what's happened to these women, and it is raw with emotion and power. And as much as these women have had everything taken from them, you get the impression very quickly that they are very powerful women, and they are taking back, by making this decision, whatever decision they make, they're taking back their authority as women in this colony. So even if they're discussing, even if they decide to stay, how do we regain our power in this society as women? Or if we decide to leave this society, this Mennonite society, which is the only one we know, how do we regain or refine or refocus our power outside of this Mennonite colony? And I think it's absolutely an amazing picture of such a harrowing story, based loosely, I think, around some true events that happened in a Mennonite colony back in the early 2000s. How I go ranking this against the other books, I don't know. I mean, I would very easily give this 4 or 5 stars on Goodreads. I can't remember what I gave it originally, possibly a 4. But it is so different to everything else in this bunch of 6 books that I don't know how the comparison will work. I'll work that out in my head when I come to make the final choice. But Women Talking by Miriam Toews, I think now that I've checked, number 5 on my list. 1 to go. Okay, we're back with book number 6 in the Booktube Prize review. This is the last of the 6 that I read, and it is Kylie Reid's Such a Fun Age. And I'll say right away that I thoroughly enjoyed this. In fact, there was none out of the 6 that I didn't enjoy. The one that I probably enjoyed least, I'm happy to say, is Ghost War by Sarah Moss. But Such a Fun Age was very, very good, and I had no idea what to make of it when I read the back. It's all of these bright, happy colours and, pink everywhere, and then the description on the back is it's about power dynamics, race, social commentary, and why and how we are the women we are. And then placed next to some of these other stories which involve the power of women, this is a very different book to the other books that deal with this topic. And I found it thoroughly fascinating as a short plot description. We have a babysitter called Amira, an African American woman who's babysitting for a white family, and something happens at the house where this family is, and Amira comes to take the child to the supermarket just for an hour or so while they sort out the issue at the house. And I won't tell you what that issue is. It's a pretty innocuous kind of problem. They just didn't want the child to be there for this particular thing. So Amira takes this white child to the supermarket just to entertain her, and it is the middle of the night, so it does look a little strange. And at the supermarket, someone calls the security guard and the police, and Amira almost ends up arrested, but she is accused of kidnapping this child. And that short event in the book, which happens right at the start, helps to lay out the entire story. That event is not central to the story, but it certainly sets up everything else. And from there, what you see are examples of casual racism. So white people who idolise the black experience, or try to co-opt the black experience for their own, and just casually racist things that white people think is just quite a normal way to react. Amira does in some way like the family that she's babysitting for, and if not like them, then at the very least really likes the child, because the child is innocent and fun, and I think it's referring to such a fun age when they refer to the child in this book. I'd like it to refer to Amira, who's a 20-something university-educated woman who still doesn't know what she wants to do. So is the title referring to her? Is this a fun age? Because it's decidedly not fun for Amira. But all of her friends seem to be having fun. Her friends are forming up their careers, they're making money, they're getting into relationships, they're falling out of relationships, but their lives, to Amira, from the outside, the lives of her friends seem to be fun-filled. So, and Amira's life decidedly is not. I won't tell you any more about the plot, only to say that this was remarkable as a book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it makes these 6 books so hard to rank. And I'm going to do a separate video for the ranking, because I think it's more of a reveal. After watching a 20-minute video talking about 6 videos, 6 different books, you're never going to find the ranking at the end. So I'll do a separate video about the ranking. So that's it. 6 books for the octafinals of Group, I don't even remember what group it was. Group B, maybe? I can't remember. But as of April the 1st, they've announced they've halved those groups, and we're now into the quarterfinals. More videos to come. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed those 6 reviews recorded over the space of 2 months or so, a full 2 months. And get reading. The quarterfinals are now out, so if there's any of these you haven't read, some of these would have made it through and some wouldn't. I'll let you know which very soon. But if you haven't tried anything from the non-fiction list, you should also try that. There are some amazing books in the non-fiction list as well. Have a great reading day wherever you may be, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.